y'all, I'm Amanda. Welcome back to Fig and Thistle Books. I'm here with my February wrap-up in the middle of March, but hey, better late than never. I did want to make a comment about my video a few days ago about blogging and how I was going to bring back my WordPress blog. That's not going to happen. Today I had several hours stretching out before me, and I was like, you know what? I get to work on my blog. I'm so excited. I changed some things and the format and the way it looked. And, sorry, that's bad habit cracking my knuckles. And I opened up a new post and I typed the title, I'm back. And then I had nothing. Everything I had thought of I wanted to blog about, I didn't want to write about. And there were things I wanted to write about that it needs to go in a journal right now and simmer for a bit and not like just willy-nilly on the interwebs. So, psych, I'm not bringing back my blog right now, which I feel bad about because I had several people say, oh, I don't really get time to watch vlogs, or I like your blog, or I love how you wrote it, which made me feel really good. Yeah, apparently it's just not, coming, and I'm not going to force it because I think you can tell when someone's forcing themselves to write, and I don't want to write dry academic stuff, so we'll just wait. Maybe this summer, maybe next year, maybe at some point I'll blog. Right now, I'm just going to record when I can, put up videos when I can. I'm not going to sweat it. So, February reading, let's move on to that. I read 3 books, but you know what? I had a lot of stuff going on, so I will take 3 books. I only have one of the books with me because one book was a library book that was due and the other book was an ebook checked out through my public library, and it's since been returned, and I don't want to fool with like getting the image and superimposing it somewhere here. Ain't nobody got time for that. So we're just going to talk about the 3 books, and this is your visual. I reread The Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter, and this is one of my most favorite books ever. Ever in the history of forever. Top 10, hands down. I've read this book 3 times. It never gets old. So I just want to do, how best to describe it. There's a girl, Melanie, and she's suddenly orphaned. It's not a pot spoiler. You can see it coming a mile away. And she has to go live with her weird toy maker uncle. And there's all sorts of mythology, and there's marionettes, and there's this close-knit family that the uncle's wife is very kind, and she has 2 brothers, and they kind of befriend Melanie and Melanie's 2 younger siblings. But oh my God, if you want to get word drunk, this is the book to do it. And when I was reading this, I don't like to read aloud large passages of books because I don't think I do it justice. Then I'm like, well, anyone can just, do that. That's not really like unpacking anything for you. But this is so beautiful. I feel like I have to. So I'm going to read 1 page, okay? And hopefully I'm not going to screw it up too much. So in this scene, it's early in the book. It's about 16 pages in. And I marked it when I read it. I was like, I got it. We have to talk about this. Melanie is trying on her mother's wedding dress. She can't sleep. This is summer. She's 15, almost 16, or maybe just turned 16. And she's at this point between girlhood and womanhood. And her body is changing, and her thoughts are changing, her priorities, and she tries on her mother's dress, and this is what happens. She was bitterly disappointed that the dress was too big. She weltered and rolled in white satin. She kicked the hem before her back to the dressing table to find the pins and pin herself up. But she saw in the mirror that it did not matter if the dress was too big. Her face under the streaming black hair was blanched and transfigured by the cast-up shimmer of the dress, which skimmed the very edge of her breast in the manner of the dresses of Elizabethan virgins. She moved in a rich tint which curiously emphasized her own slenderness and illuminated her like a candelabra. She knew she could not cope with the veil, but she reached for the wreath and set it straight on her head. The little pearls gleamed like eyes, or the tears of fishes, which they are said to be, but her mother's pearls were artificial. Nevertheless, they gleamed. And am I as beautiful as that? She thought, startled under the pearls and flowers. She opened her mother's wardrobe and inspected herself in the long mirror. She was still a beautiful girl. She went back to her own room and looked at herself again in her own mirror to see if that said different. But again, she was beautiful. Moonlight, white satin, roses, a bride. Whose bride? But she was tonight sufficient for herself in her own glory and did not need a groom. Look at me, she said to the apple tree as it fattened its placid fruit in the country silence of the night. Look at me, she cried passionately to the pumpkin moon as it smiled jovial and round-faced as a child's idea of itself. A fresh little grass-scented wind blew through the open window and stroked her neck, stirring her hair. Under the moon, the country spread out like a foreign and enchanted land where the corn was orient in immortal wheat, neither sown nor reaped, terra incognita, untrodden by the foot of man, untouched by his hand, virgin. I shall go down into the garden, into the night. Holy hell. The whole book is like that. The whole thing. It is just like gorgeously, drunkenly. The prose, just butter my butt and call me a biscuit. This is like the nicest thing ever. Okay, let's see here. So, yes, go and read The Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter. If you're starting out with Angela Carter, this is a great one to start out with. She's always weird. She's always magic realism. She's always a delightful writer. And it's dark. It is dark and beautiful, and I like that. And that sounds really gothy to say, but I like that. Okay. So that was the first book I read in February that I just like absorbed through my pores for like the third time. The second book I read was an ebook I checked out from Hoopla through my public library, and it was Sarah Schmidt's See What I Have Done, a fictionalized account of Lizzie Borden. We've all heard that Lizzie Borden had an axe, gave her father 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her mother 41. Maybe I've mixed up the mother father. Anyways, her. So I've been trying to think of what I want to say about this book. I liked it. I was riveted. I was glued to the page, to the screen. I feel like the first half of the book was expertly constructed. There's so much visceral descriptions. If you have a weak stomach, don't read this. And it's not necessarily from gore, although there is some gore, but we're talking like vomit, dandruff, sweat, smells of urine and feces and closeness and like staleness and just, it's a lot. If you don't read it while you're eating lunch. Just the smells and the bodily descriptions just like ratchet up the tension in almost this Hitchcockian way, because we're in this house with Lizzie Borden and this strained relationship she has with her father and her stepmother, and the weird sort of codependent latching on she has with her older sister Emma. And we're in this house, and then there's a maid who's treated like family and then very much not treated like family. She's privy to a lot of the family's secrets, but she's the maid, she's the help. So but because we're in this house and it's hot outside and there's all these bodily things coming on, it really creates this like suffocating atmosphere where you want to like, I gotta get out of this house. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, maybe she killed him because she had to get out of the house. I mean, it really you can feel the tension and the stress, and it's so tightly woven. But then it reaches a moment where it becomes too much. Like there's this turn, and it's with the introduction of a character named Benjamin, who is kind of like a loner, kind of in town, seedy sort of fellow. And this story is told through like Emma's voice and Lizzie's voice and the voice of the maid and then the voice of Benjamin. Benjamin did not come off very authentic for me. It got to the point where I was like, okay, now we're just being gross. It felt artificial. It felt, those visceral details felt like she was really getting into her writing, and it just kind of like, I don't know. Okay, there's only so many times you can hear about someone like messing with a tooth that's rotted in their gum and ripping it out. Like, I think that happens 3 times where it's like, and he was rooting around with his tongue in his mouth and like knocked the sore tooth and then plucked it out and said, like, and it just goes on and on and on. And so what happens is you get this tension and this build in this household and the bodily stuff, which makes the murders so much more gruesome to me, because we've talked about all this, like, how human are these humans? These people are freaking human. It's biology right here, and then they're dead, and it's, so I feel like that was very effective, but it like ranches up to this crescendo where it's like, then the thing happens that we all know that is going to happen, because it jumps around in time some to before and after and during and stuff, and then it just kind of like, this Benjamin guy did not ring authentic to me. It felt forced. It felt like I really think it could have just been left to the maid and Lizzie and her sister Emma and been much more effective. And then the ending kind of just petered out for me a bit. So I gave it 3 stars. A 3-star rating does not mean it's a bad book. It means that I liked it. There were a lot of elements I enjoyed, but there's a few things that had me like, I'm not so sure. I will definitely check out other works by Sarah Schmidt, because I think has a lot of writing talent, and I think this was her first novel, so I can't wait to see what else she's going to do. But you know what? I liked most of it. I was definitely riveted to the page, but it's not one that I would necessarily be raving and putting in everybody's hands, especially if they don't like bodily descriptions. So that was the second book I read. The last book I read, and I kind of read this throughout the month of February, just picking up here and there, is a short story collection by Helen Oyeyemi called What Is Not Yours Is Not Yours. And I did what I did with short story collections. I can't figure out how to pace myself when I read short stories. If I read them all in one fell swoop, or like in chunks throughout the week, it ends up where the stories merge and overlap, and I can't like separate them out. However, when I read them piecemeal, like, I'll read like 1 story a week or 2 stories a week, I can't remember enough of the details to like string it all together or remember enough. There is a lot of magical realism, fairy tales, they're puppets, a lot of elements of the uncanny. There's a revolving cast of characters, but it's not very clear. It's not like, and here are stories about these people. It's, you just kind of have to, you figure out, you'll see like people in the background of other stories and be like, oh, that was the person from the story before. So it was a great book. I love the story collection. I gave it 4 stars, but I can't tell you necessarily what my favorite stories were. So that is my February wrap up. 3 books. We're going to aim for more in March. Let's see how it goes. All right. I hope you had a great reading month in February, and I hope your March is off to a pretty banging reading start. All right. Thanks. Bye.